So we're joined by Scott Collett, owner of the Woodstock winery in McLaren Vale. So Scott, you're very welcome. And maybe give us a brief idea of how the vintage was in 2012.
2012 was a fantastic year for us, really. Low crops and focused fruit characters, plenty of sunshine, plenty of ripeness and richness, and that's what we like in McLaren Vale, because we get this big, rich, middle palate flavour that McLaren Vale is famous for. It's juicy sweetness, not just sugar sweetness, but fruit sweetness.
It's good balance. And in Ireland, in the UK, is the currency and the exchange rate kind of having an influence on the retail price of the wines? Do you see that in terms of exports from Australia?
Yes, we do see that, but that's more at the cheaper end of the spectrum, and that's not really a focus for us. We focus on better quality wines, and don't want to sound like we don't care. We naturally care about what the price is at the end, but it's more sensitive at the low price points. So I don't really talk much about prices. I talk about flavours, about fun, about capturing grapes in the vineyard and putting them in the bottle. And if that works for everyone in the current economic climate, then terrific. If not, we'll find a market where it does work. And at the moment, China and Australia are still working well for us. And yes, the higher price because of exchange rates, not easy, but there's always people that are more concerned with quality than the price.
Okay. So we're trying the stocks here at the minute, which is your flagship red. Can you give us a bit of a background into this?
Oh, this is my baby. I love this. It's 2006 vintage, so it's got a little bit of age on it. The stocks is 110-year-old single vineyard wine, and it expresses the flavour of the soil. We get about 3 bottles per vine, which is not much of a finished product. But I go through and crop thin and make sure that every vine is capable of ripening the crop that it has. Being so old, some are not as healthy as others, so they all ripen evenly, capture those grapes when they're as good as perfect, and then a lot of care and attention all the way along. Only the best barrels make the grade, and when we crush the grapes, they look like any other Shiraz until day 3 of fermentation, and then bingo, there it is. It's got this flavour, this personality that comes from that soil, and it's always refreshing to see it again. I can see it clearly in this glass here, and each vintage expresses that single vineyard personality differently, but it's always there behind as a character. Some years it doesn't make the grade because I'm not happy with the ripeness level. It's all about tannin ripeness, not just fruit sweetness and sugar. It's about character, and that comes from time on the vine. And so it's only released in the best vintages. There's 2 or 3 vintages in the last 10 years that we've not released, but you can trust it. If we release it, it's going to be good, and it's going to be better if we sell it, and then allowed to breathe, decanted, all the rest.
Is it used in French and American, or is it?
Mostly American these days. The oak source is not as important as the care and attention given to the oak and the selection of the tight-grained oak. The American oak in the past used to be very bourbon-like, really aggressive, harsh characters, whereas these days they're getting better at selecting the oak, and we're getting better at choosing them, and it's actually quite a challenge to show. I can show some good winemakers, American versus French samples, and they can't put them together. So it's not cut and dried about French and American anymore. It's a bit more detailed.
It's a lovely nose, nice juicy fruit, nice spices in there as well. But you do get almost a suggestion of mineral notes or minerality.
Yeah, there is. There's some.
Quite intriguing. Yes.
It's hard for me to describe it. I've tasted it and tried to describe it many times, but to me it's just I'm maybe too close to it. It's got this personality that's part of the family. I know every vine. I go through and check every vine before we harvest it. So it's the essence of that. It's becoming quite an icon, I suppose.
So for fruit then, for the vintage then, that's maybe not being good enough to produce the stocks, where does the fruit go to then?
It may get downgraded to, we've got a pilot's view, which is more juicy, softer, more approachable food wine, which we serve in Australia. We put it on as a restaurant wine. It goes really well with a big juicy steak or something. Whereas I prefer the stocks after a meal, so you can just sit back and savour it and appreciate
it
by itself, or with a bit of cheese or something, without the complication of all those other flavours. We have other Shiraz wines as well from other vineyards, which I don't have quite the high regard as this one, but they're still my babies, and they've got that juicy chocolate and mint sort of characters, that rich middle palate flavour that McLaren Vale is famous for. We're close to the sea, so we get this afternoon cool breeze that comes through and cools things down and keeps those natural acidity.
I think it's an important factor, isn't it, to have that? Otherwise, it's just too bombastic, I find. I do enjoy McLaren Vale, and it must be just for that kind of colour influence.
I think it is, and there's a softness that comes from perhaps a little bit of humidity of the sea breezes. There's a juiciness and a fleshiness and an approachability with McLaren Vale and that rich texture that flows through the middle palate time and again. It's Australia's most consistent premium grape growing region, and I'm loyal to it.
Yeah. And the other wine that I mentioned before, which I like, is the fortified tawny.
Well, my father started making fortifieds when he was a pioneer in the wine industry. Fortifieds go back a long time before he started in 1950, but he tasted the wines of Europe as a Spitfire pilot in the Second World War, and loved those table wines that he discovered there. Because each night was probably his last and drank like there's no tomorrows, he thought, wow, this is a serious industry, and saw the scale of vineyards in Europe as a reconnaissance pilot, and that he decided that was going to be his career. But he had to make fortifieds, so he put a few fortifieds down, and I've discovered them, and I keep learning them, and my children now are helping me with them. So it's like a 3-generational wine, and I've been doing it for 25 years, and the average age is about 25 years, even though it says minimum age 20, but they're both correct. There's some material in there that's like 40 years old. It's great to have a wine that's passing through 3 generations and hopefully more.
That's great, thank you.
Cheers. I've got to be careful what I say, because it can be used as evidence against me.